All right, so I just got back from a trip to Europe, and instead of bringing what I usually do, which is the 16-inch MacBook Pro, I decided to bring the new 15-inch MacBook Air with the M4 chip. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would I ditch the performance beast that's the MacBook Pro for something less capable? Well, because this trip was a perfect opportunity to find out if the MacBook Air is good enough for travel, productivity, and even content creation. Let's get into it. So first of all, productivity, and this is where the M4 MacBook Air just crushes it. It's just 3.3 pounds and it's only 11.5 millimeters thin, which is nuts. This thing literally disappears into your backpack. There's no sore shoulders, no fighting to open it on a tray table. There's no extra weight as you go through the airport and through security. Now compare that with the 16-inch MacBook Pro, which is over 4.7 pounds, and it's noticeably bulkier in every way. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the MacBook Pro, but traveling with it sometimes feels like I'm bringing a small workstation in my carry-on. Now, also, I didn't expect this, but the Air doesn't quite scream expensive laptop in the same way that the MacBook Pro does. And I'm not really sure why, but it is something that I noticed myself being aware of. But now let's talk performance, because this is where most people assume that the MacBook Air is going to fall short. Now, the model that I have has an M4 chip, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and a 1 terabyte SSD because I wanted to make sure that I can keep it for a while. And of course, no MacBook with an M chip can be upgraded after you buy it. As a side note, I always use an external SSD with all of my MacBooks, regardless of how much storage I have. So I just get as much internal storage as I think I'll need for the operating system, the apps that I use, and the files that I plan keeping locally on the MacBook. As far as what I did on the MacBook Air, it's anything from video editing in Premiere Pro and CapCut, photo editing in Photoshop, writing scripts, emails, Notion, everything that I do during a typical day. And it handled everything without breaking a sweat. Like, exports weren't quite as fast as they are on the MacBook Pro, but the editing process was smooth, and that's way more important to me. If you think about it, let's say that a regular video takes 10 minutes to export on the MacBook Air, and that the MacBook Pro can do it at 30% faster. Well, that's just saving me 3 minutes a couple of times a week, and it's not like I'm sitting there waiting while it's doing it anyways. I'm going to get a cup of coffee or I'm doing something else. The actual editing process is what takes hours, and that's where I'm not willing to add any friction with a slower machine. And the M4 and the MacBook Air easily took care of what I needed. Now, if you're a developer compiling large builds, or if you're editing multicam 8K footage all day, or if you're doing a lot of 3D stuff, then yeah, you'll probably miss the headroom of the MacBook Pro. But for most people on the road, the M4 MacBook Air is more than enough. Now, I'll talk later about some things that I did miss when using the MacBook Air, but there were a few travel-specific perks that I didn't expect. The form factor and the lighter weight just make you want to bring it with you. It's just so light considering how big the display is, which for me meant that there were more times when I was willing to pack it, and that meant that I actually got more stuff done. Now, no fans mean that you can just flip it open and start working anywhere without annoying anyone. The MacBook Pro fans are super quiet, but silent is even better. And silent means completely silent, even when I'm doing an export. I was wondering whether the MacBook Air would get hot because it has no fans, but even when working outside in the sun, it had no issues. Unfortunately, I can't say the same thing for myself, and some of my travel days were crazy hot. Now, on an earlier trip to Croatia, I saw someone use the original version of this fan, which was super impressive, and I decided to check out the JISULIFE Handheld Fan Ultra 2. And no pun intended, but it blew me away. When I saw that it has 100 wind speed adjustments, I just wasn't sure what to expect, but it's so crazy powerful that most of the time, I just end up using it between level 10 and 20. This thing is tiny, it's more powerful than the previous one. It has a 9,000 milliampere hour battery, so it lasts for hours. It fully charges in under 3.5 hours. It has a flashlight feature and some fun accessories which help me keep my setup clean. I can also use the USB-C port on the back to charge my phone, so it's like having a power bank with me everywhere I go. If you're looking for a super powerful handheld fan, I would definitely suggest you check it out. I'll put links in the description to this and a few other models, and thank you to JISULIFE for sponsoring this portion of the video. And speaking of devices that last forever, the battery life on the MacBook Air is wild. I've had every single M series MacBook Air, and this one is no different in terms of how impressively efficient it is. I got 13 to 15 hours of real world use. That's writing scripts, browsing the web, editing, all without touching a charger. I was out in cafes, I was in airports, even on my flight, I never even once stressed about battery life, and that's awesome when I travel. Plus, as a bonus, the MacBook Air charges either via MagSafe or USB-C, so I can actually use the same power bank that I use for my iPhone and my iPad whenever I did need to top it off. Now, the MacBook Pro and the MacBook Air have excellent displays, but there are some important differences. The 15-inch MacBook Air has a liquid retina display and it looks fantastic. It's bright enough for outdoor work and the colors are accurate. But the MacBook Pro, it's got XDR, so mini LEDs, 16 inches instead of 15, higher brightness, better HDR, and a higher resolution. This is where I'm a little spoiled because the MacBook Pro display is so beautiful and I'm used to it now. So to be fair, the MacBook Air display is very nice, but it's not quite as nice. If you're color grading on an elite level, if you're working with HDR video, the MacBook Pro display may be a big deal for you. For everyone else, honestly, I didn't miss it. As far as speakers, the MacBook Air's 6-speaker systems sound amazing considering how thin and light this laptop is. The MacBook Pro does win on volume, fullness, and bass, but this is where it comes down to how you use your laptop. It's extremely rare that I use the speakers on mine because I'm always using AirPods. So while the MacBook Pro does definitely have better speakers, it didn't really translate into a practical, meaningful difference for me. Now, moving on, the keyboard and trackpad are nearly identical between the two, and they're both fantastic. Typing for long stretches felt great, whether I was on a train, a hotel desk, or a random bench, and these might be my favorite keyboards on any laptop. Now, the trackpads are definitely my favorite, and while the MacBook Pro has a slightly larger trackpad, both are massive, and it's not a significant difference. Webcam, it's 1080p on both, totally solid for Zoom calls or FaceTime, and Apple keeps improving the low light performance. So while you're not getting mirrorless camera quality, it's plenty good for what I used it for. And of course, I could use the iPhone camera as a webcam with either of these MacBooks if I really wanted to. Now, there is one thing that I really missed on this trip, and that's the built-in SD card reader. You see, the MacBook Pro has a built-in SDXC card slot, which is perfect for when you're shooting on a mirrorless camera or a drone. You just grab the card, pop it in, you're good to go. But with the MacBook Air, there's no card reader, so just 2 USB-C ports, a MagSafe port, and the headphone jack. So if you're importing videos or photos from your camera, you can either do it through USB-C or you'll need to pack a dongle or a card reader. Ultimately, yeah, if you're a travel content creator, that's a little detail that might push you towards the MacBook Pro, or at the very least, make sure that you throw a card reader in your bag. The MacBook Pro also has an HDMI port, but that's not something that I use on the road because I just use Sidecar with my iPad Pro. Now, one last difference I noticed is just how much I appreciate having ports on both sides of the MacBook Pro. On the MacBook Air, both USB-C ports are on the left side, and depending on where I was, sometimes the power source was on the right, or it was more convenient to have the external SSD on the right side. Now, obviously, this is not the end of the world, but it is a nice to have with the MacBook Pro. So is the M4 15-inch MacBook Air the perfect travel laptop? If you're a digital nomad, a student, a remote worker, or a creator who doesn't need the absolutely best desktop class power on the go, then yes. You're getting incredible battery life, quiet, fanless performance, a beautiful screen, easily enough processing power for 95% of workflows. It's so thin and it weighs nothing. Starting at $1199 with 16 gigabytes of unified memory, it's a no-brainer for most travelers. At the same time, if your workflow demands raw GPU performance, HDR video color accuracy, or maximum export speed, the 16-inch MacBook Pro still holds the crown. Just be ready to carry more weight. Let me know down in the comments, which one would you travel with, the MacBook Air or the MacBook Pro? And if you've used one of these on the road, what's your real-world experience been like? You know what I always say? Buy it nice or buy it twice. Good luck and see you soon.